Hello, everyone. It's really good to be here. It's really good to be here. I have the incredible privilege to be on a family vacation in Mexico right now. It's beautiful, warm, and I also feel incredibly privileged to be here with you. Because right now is a moment in time that I feel is shaking me to my core. And I imagine, I have an inkling that maybe some of you out there are feeling like you are inside of a crucible, or that life somehow has you pinned in some kind of alchemy. So today we're going to discuss Venus retrograde. Venus goes retrograde in today, October 5th, 2018, in the 10th degree of Scorpio. This is the 44th gene key. We're getting right into the nitty-gritty of our sexual wounding and how we can recalibrate our hearts and reawaken the feminine in her power to channel her sexuality. And this is for men too. This is the inner masculine and feminine, to reclaim the power of our intimacy and of the place where we come together as beings in trust. She retrogrades back into the final degrees of Libra, and on November 16th, she will station direct in the 32nd gene key at the 25th degree of Libra. So not only are we getting into the subterranean layers where Venus is inviting us into a dialogue with the unconscious terrain of Scorpio. So all of the shadows, the taboos, the things that are hidden, that we don't talk about as a culture, that we don't process around. I mean, this is so much intense stuff here. And then swooping across the border back into Libra, where this can all inform reshaping our relationships in a way that are establishing greater balance, greater interdependence. So optimally, when retrogrades come in, and any transit really, we're offered an opportunity to optimize our awakening. We're given an opportunity to really come into the higher octave of whatever the terrain is. So here we have the opportunity to awaken inside of our relationships, to come into deep sense of sovereignty, to purify our desires. Mars square Venus, totally going to get into that. To come into right relation with each other. This is so crucial for the collective right now. And that's where the 44th gene key comes into play. But before I get into the 44, every transit it's not ensuring that the gift is going to be the outcome. It's giving us an opportunity, but it's hard work. And so we're literally being handed our work in such a powerful way. And what is required of us right now is beyond I'll just say for myself, I've never been pressed so hard by the universe and required, no way out, Amma, you gotta go right through the pinhole of this pain and of these patterns. There's no way out. And this is partly because this Venus retrograde is pinned inside of a grand fixed cross. Ooh, fixed signs require us to unstuck our energy or be totally trapped inside of a stagnancy. Grand Cross is that crucible for growth because it's full of tension. It's like indicates so much activity coming to the surface of our lives to resolve conflict and tension. but it's like, it's got these like oppositions in effect. So there's this like, you can't like, thank God we are not being given like easy way out. There's no easy way out of this one. We have to go through. And what I would say is that if you do try to take the easy way out of this time period, these 5 to 6 weeks, actually, if you add the setup and integration phase, we're talking about a 3-month period. If you're trying to get the easy way out, the ripples of the choices of not facing what is yours to face, to cleanse the genetic memory and the wounding inside of the masculine and feminine, those things will really, I feel, with Saturn and Capricorn and all that's happening in the whole spectrum of the cosmos right now and on this planet, is really going to come back to you. It's like, at this point, make the shift. We are being given an opportunity to adjust, okay? No matter how hard it is, we have to adjust. We get to adjust. We get to, okay? And so the victim wants to say, ugh, I have to, and I have been saying this many times. Why is life like doing this to me right now? And I just have to say, it's okay. Be gentle with yourself. Have those little pity parties. Like, be a toddler, have a tantrum. We have to feel those things and correct yourself, because and I thank God for the reflections in our lives that are the mirrors to say, hey, I hear the victim there. Where can you enter into a relationship of thank you challenges? Thank you for these crazy relationship dynamics. Thank you for this tension inside of my partnership. Thank you for this wounding that I inherited from my ancestry. Thank you, pain. You are shaping me into a more liberated and awakened being. So right now, Venus retrograde inside of a grand cross with opposition with Uranus. So the liberator coming to press us into awakening, breaking out of the closing of our hearts that Venus will do when she collapses in fear and pain and mistrust. Square to Mars, which I will say this time last year, 1 year ago, Mars and Venus were conjunct, having their little like seeding of some cycle that we are now hitting the third quarter square in the 47th gene key of physical alchemy. I'll just say, 1 year ago, my partner and I hit this breaking point where I was like going to leave the relationship, but then I realized that it was actually codependence that had to go. And I made this really strong intention. And that was when Venus and Mars were conjunct in the 47th gene key of transmutation. Now, 1 year later, they're at the third quarter square of their cycle together, and in this Venus retrograde. So she's really bearing into what is this square all about. It's like a test point. And this codependent, I cannot have planned how much we have been. What the life events that have had to play out to get us to a place where right now we are living out what breaking out of codependence really is. It's not just conceptual, it's literally playing out. So I just wanted to speak to that. Inside of this square to Mars, Mars is with the South Node in the 19th gene key right now. The 19th gene key moves from codependence into sensitivity, which is like this coming into our own sovereignty, and then the city of sacrifice, which is all about interdependence. Literally, we could not script this. It's so perfect. Because so we got the nodes at play in this grand cross. So the nodes are obviously just telling us that this work that we are doing of liberating our hearts, recalibrating our capacities to love, is a part of our collective destiny. And this is a necessary step that we need to make to create greater coherence in the collective. Okay, so 44th gene key. That's where it's like, I like to look at the keys that frame the transit, the retrograde, because it's kind of telling a story. So Venus is stationing retrograde in the 44th gene key that moves from interference to the gift of teamwork and the city of synarchy. This gene key is called karmic relationships. So at the higher essence, this key is saying, yo, we are designed as a collective to operate inside of these like beautiful orchestrations of collective intelligence and a synchronization of shared, collaborative, co-creative genius to like open into a future that is actually from a collective mind. It's like a hive mind. This is all about coherence and harmony inside of relationships. And when you look at it on that grand scale, you track it all the way back to the chaos of the world right now is based on dysfunctional patterns inside of the code. So we have to follow the virus back to the basics of our own relationships, self and other, family dynamics, my personal relationship with myself. So 44 is saying, go to the kinks inside of the system, root out the viruses. And this is where I feel like the master program of the universe right now is running relational diagnostics. Literally going into the operating system of our psyches and saying, okay, where are the viruses? What's off here? Where's their mistrust? Where is their, sexual wounding? And, and what life is doing right now is offering us these opportunities, right? And so on the surface of our life, all of these things will arise. So dynamics, thing like conflicts, people entering our fields, like things surfacing. And what's important about our relationship to reality right now is that we have to sort of unplug from the drama and the surface narrative that's playing out and open into just the vibrational field of what is the emotional content coming up here. Because if I'm so locked into the what and the who's and the how's and the of like what's playing out, I'm going to lose the fact that this is actually coming up to integrate something really old. So the question right now is, okay, what are the lessons that are surfacing in your relationships at this time? Where did those patterns originate? When have you seen these same patterns that are playing out right now come up before? And I'll say for me, I have this thing going on right now of being cut off from love. And when I look back to a time in my life, oh my God, high school boyfriend, cut off from love, kept shutting the door of his heart to me. And I always just felt like I couldn't get in. But guess what? That's me. He is me. I'm the one who cuts off from love with my partner who, if in response to mistakes, in response to flaws or moods or intensity, I cut off my love. You don't deserve that. Okay, that's what I do to myself when I'm singing and I'm in the stream and the flow and then I mess up. Sometimes I have this like shutdown thing where I'm cutting off from love. Okay, that pattern is the pattern that's coming up right now to say, virus in the system, we have to root that out so you can recalibrate your loving. Okay, so we are clearing the codes from our ancestral memory. And the double whammy of this, what I just said, is that when Venus stations direct at 25 degrees Libra, she will be in the 32nd gene key. Ancestral reverence. It is the gene key that tracks our genetic memory. It's how we pass on genetic memory. It moves from the shadow of failure to the gift of preservation and to the city of veneration. And this is the gene key that's saying, what do we keep from our ancestry and what do we let go of, and how we pass on genetic memory. So literally 44 and 32, we are given the opportunity to cleanse our genetic memory if we are courageous enough to do the work. Holy people, it is no joke to face into the pain that we inherited. No joke, okay? We can talk about it all day, but when it comes to the moment, this is straight up warrior shit, okay? And warrior, but simultaneous, like utter surrender, and that softening comes into play. So here's where I want to go with this. This is where, okay, if we are going to clear our ancestral memory, if we're actually going to like optimize this transit, this is all about fundamentally shifting our relationship to pain, a lifelong process. Layer by layer, we change our relationship here. So we have to stop using our emotional wounds as weapons. That is the Scorpio shadow. One of the Scorpio shadows is I'm using my emotional wounding as a weapon because I'm unable to feel it. I was trained to not feel my pain. So I use it as a weapon. I use it as a shield instead of using my wound as a way in. I either use my wound as a weapon or my wound as a way in to the moment. It's like in A Wrinkle of Time. The wound is where the light, your core wound is where the light comes in. It's where the light enters your body, literally. So that's a super crucial piece here. Where am I in an emotional battle of resources? And how can I restrain that reflex that wants to project my hurt, that wants to collapse in my hurt? And where can I actually go into that crucible of the moment and just right through the center, okay? We've got instructions for that. And these instructions are coming from Chiron in the 25th gene key, baby. So that's where I want to go, and that's where we're going to end. Chiron in the 25, as I spoke to in the last transmission that I did a couple weeks ago, if you were there for that, is so potent in the field right now. Chiron, the wounded healer, who requires a deep surrendering into suffering. 25 is the gene key inside of the 64 matrix that puts us into direct contact with the source of our suffering. It is what takes us into that sacred wound and says, do we cut off our breathing? Do we cut off our love? Or do we open to it? So it moves from the shadow of constriction to the gift of acceptance and to the city of universal love. We got some superpower frequencies of divine love coming through here. So thank Goddess that this is part of the portal of this time, because it's the perfect synchrony to what's grinding inside of our emotional and psychic bodies with our relationships with this Venus retrograde. Okay, so let's get into it. Actually, Chiron will be in the 25 for almost 3 years. So this is a long process. It went in May of 2017 and kind of pops in and out a few times through its transit, but it will leave in February 2020. So we got some time. Here's a couple taglines. There's wholeness in the brokenness. We have to come to accept that inside of the brokenness, there is a wholeness when I go in. Okay, so the question of where do I cut myself off from love, that has to be prime, like we have to really put that onto the altar this month at this time. And really ask yourself, is pain a foe or a friend? And where's my relationship? Get into the dynamics of your relationship with that. So there's a couple little poetic things that I've come up with here. Grief as a gateway. Pain as a portal to more love, to more essence. And discomfort as a doorway into the present moment. So how can we simply allow, accept, and embrace our pain into our lives, our suffering? So allow is a physical thing. If you haven't listened to the 25th audio, please listen to that audio. It's so powerful. Transmission around allow, accept, embrace, which is the core tenet to the Gene Keys. Allow is physically allowing the vibration of the discomfort just to exist. And that is the first step, and that's usually the step I miss. The second one is acceptance. So it's emotional. It's actually feeling what we're feeling and accepting that we're feeling that. And then eventually we may come to that place where we can embrace that pain and actually witness the way it is truly an alchemical agent in our lives and witness the transmutation underway. Because remember, when Venus and Mars were conjunct last year, they seeded some kind of physical alchemy, some possibility for transmutation. And this is what's playing out right now. So see it in the larger cycle. Venus retrograde is calling us to acknowledge that our relationships right now and how they are a mirror to our own relationship with self. So if you don't have a partner, pull it in, see those inner dynamics, that our relationships are a vehicle for our awakening. And that awakening is about sourcing our love inside of us. We will talk about this forever. We have to stop that projection of ourselves externally. I asked a friend a question, how much more of me is lost in the external? Because I keep finding these pieces of myself that are like stitched into the outer. And we are part of the whole. But if that's like my inner intrinsic value being like plastered onto my reality, that's just not serving me. That's leaks in my system. That's not power, empowerment, sovereignty. So because we are Venus retrograde, Scorpio, back into Libra, we're going to see some new agreements and taking shape in our relationships, new containers to support what interdependence can look like. I started to call my partner more by his name, Theo, instead of honey and baby and all the like cute terms of endearment, which I love, but just to simply be like, you're your own person. Theo, could you pass the butter? Like, you're your own person. You can say no. It's like my baby. Oh, like, what are the things that you can do to make adjustments, like, just in the way that you function in your life with the people that you love? So I feel like I covered everything there. That's so much. I think the last thing I want to say is just because we're dealing with Venus and Mars, we're talking about, like, I want to give the larger frame of how the patriarchy has been playing out for thousands of years, has actually shut the feminine power and feminine sexuality down. So when we talk about a shift of the ages and a shift in consciousness, I think we are witnessing the slow unfurling of what it looks like for the feminine to be coming back into power. Clearly in the 60s, that was triggered. Now we're 50 years from that time cycle. And we're seeing so many of the social issues that were hit around that Uranus-Pluto conjunction in the 60s. So many of those revolutionary seeds are, back on the world stage as Uranus and Pluto were squaring 2012 to 2015. So we're watching these larger cycles playing out. And what it is the rise of the feminine. So slowly, in slow motion, we see this. How are we honoring our feminine? How is the masculine being initiated into true masculinity and not just boyhood? Because that is a distinction that's really important for us to make as far as tracking the patriarchy. Patriarchy is not the masculine. It's the wounded, immature masculine. It's the boy archetypes running the show. So really, like, that helps us to love our men, that helps us say, no, it's all, like, we need the masculine coming into his power and potency just as much as we need the reclamation of the feminine. So, and again, this is not men and women, this is the inner masculine feminine dynamics as it plays out through the genders and the sexes. Yeah, y'all, it's just so deep. And I just wanted to give that like thousands of years frame to really like contextualize the immensity of this moment and the true alchemy. So Welcome to the crucible of this moment, to Venus Retrograde 2018. If you, good luck. Just kidding. Wow. I have so much honor for the deep work that's being done. Be gentle with yourself. Chalk up your little small victories. Look at the progress that you've made over time. We're not going to be perfect. We're going to make mistakes. And really just, behold the beauty. Behold the beauty of this existence. There is so much beauty to come through this. If we can open our eyes to the gift, to the gratitude, of when we are pressed, when we are like turned into this diamond, pressurized into these jewels and diamonds, like behold the beauty of those jewels. Look around. We are alive. We are incarnate. Thank God. Many blessings.